The impact of God's power. Scripture, say unto God, how terrible art thou in thy works. Through the greatness of the power shall thine enemies submit themselves unto thee. Psalm chapter 66 verse 3. When a person is loaded with power, there is nothing in the future to be afraid of. The other time, we saw that being a carrier of God's power is a non-negotiable requirement for every child of God, especially in times like this where wickedness is on the increase. Now, what is the impact of God's power as far as preservation is concerned? 1. The power of God causes God's people to prevail over the threats of their enemies and the fear of the future. Genesis chapter 32 verse 28. Jacob was going to face the threat of Esau, a 21-year-old threat, and he was also faced with an uncertain future. He stood in the place where he wrestled with God until he prevailed by power. He also prevailed over the threat of Esau. That means, it takes the power of God to prevail over the threat of the enemy and the fear of the future. Maybe they threaten that they will take your name to a witch doctor, occult altar, or hired killers. You can prevail over them by the power of God. When a person is loaded with power, there is nothing in the future to be afraid of. 2. The power of God brings our enemies into submission and defeat. Psalm chapter 66 verse 3. It does not matter how arrogant, braggadocios, ostentatious the enemy may sound, they can be made to bow by the power of God. If they have not bowed yet, power is lacking. If they have not submitted yet, there is a shortage of power. Remember this, when a person is loaded with power, there is nothing in the future to be afraid of.